This is happening in notes.
That's right. That is recorded. Let me go back and check.
What does that last one say?
Chamos.
Hamas.
Chamos. Apparently, so a Greek colleague of ours, Maria Scourialou, she talks about chamos is a word meaning kind of like beyond despair or in the pit of despair. So we'll refer to this and make some sense of it as we talk about it. So I think the bottom line here is that the majority of places that I'm working in or that we're working with are experiencing heightened levels of chaos that are beyond their control, right? So there's a piece here which is like, okay, so things are clearly economically uncertain, right? There's economic uncertainty in the environments that we're in. There is environmental uncertainty. We were talking about that at our table. We're not quite sure what's happening with our environment. It just seems to be getting increasingly unpredictable, right? There is a level of social uncertainty that is taking place, right? And then things seem to be speeding up. I'm talking like big level, but things are speeding up. It's getting faster and faster and faster around us, whether we like it or not. And so I can say those things in almost any context I walk into. People are like, okay, all right. And so the idea that we've got control in an increasingly fast-paced, increasingly economically uncertain, increasingly environmentally uncertain, increasingly diverse world, right? I mean, it's just kind of nuts, right? But the majority of places I'm working is like, control is still the dominant decision-making model. It's the dominant problem-solving mechanism. Oh, shit's gone weird, how are we going to fix it? Right? It's getting uncomfortable, how are we going to get control of it? Yeah? So, the dominant problem-solving paradigm, mechanism that's out there doesn't fit the reality of the circumstance that we're in anymore. It just doesn't fit.
Because you named here things that are uncertain, but for some of us, some of those uncertainties are really good things, right? So we can talk about a collapsing economic system, which might feel scary to all of us, but we could also talk about things like Black Lives Matter, which feels very chaotic to people and creates a lot of uncertainty. There are many of us going like, yes, right? But the dominant response is still to get control, right? Often diversity efforts are seen to be located here because they bring in more uncertainty to a system. And so the response is often here to get control of that.
Right. And we've got the largest movement of people in Europe at the moment since World War II, right? I mean, massive numbers of people moving across boundaries. We may actually be witnessing the collapse of the European Union, right? Which is possibly one of the most incredible peace projects that we've ever seen. Like a region that's been at war for 2,000 years, built some kind of union that enabled them to live peacefully together for nearly 60. Unprecedented. And it may be on the verge of, we may be seeing the collapse of one of the greatest peace projects we've seen recently. So, the idea that you're in control in that kind of world is just kind of nuts, you know? And in fact, the more that you try and get control, the more suffering that you create for yourself and for the people around you.
Right. And my only point was that this may feel different based on your location.
That's right.
The chaos may feel different.
Yeah.
But
the basic,
is often the same.
Right. So there's nearly always some kind of circumstance that is taking place which feels chaotic, and people have tried some level of traditional response and it hasn't worked. So they're like, what do I do now? You know? And it's like, oh, well, if we want to figure out how to do something, we need to start engaging the people who are impacted so we can come up with solutions, right? That may actually move us further. Because if we're in a rapidly changing world with increased levels of diversity, increased levels of uncertainty, etc., right? The only way we're going to be able to figure it out, to see a bigger picture, is to be able to get together the different perspectives of those who are impacted, so we can make smarter strategic choices about how we move forward from here. Right? That's almost like the bottom line that I'm saying everywhere I go, is that there's no way that you as a group of senior leaders, you know, or you as a particular piece of an industry or sector, or you as a particular department in an organization are going to be able to figure something out on your own because of the nature of the circumstance that we're trying to get it done within. Right? So we have to figure out participation.
Even if you're an awesome diversity department,
Yeah.
you can't figure it out on your own,
No.
right? And so to continue to say this is the way it should be, and this is how we're gonna tell you how to do it, actually is old paradigm, right? It is a traditional model that won't work.
Right.
I think that's an important point, because a lot of the emerging movements, if you will, within this unpredictable world still rely on control to make decisions.
Absolutely.
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 And if they don't, they get heavily criticized. I mean, if you think about how many senior civil rights leaders have criticized Black Lives Matters because it's a decentralized network movement that doesn't say, this is our platform, this is our policy, this is how we make decisions, right? So that's,
Well, and even with that, it depends on where you are with Black Lives Matter.
oh, absolutely, right? But just in general, right, this old paradigm of like, we need to know how to, you know, right, yes. And certainly because it's a network movement, it functions differently in different places.
Again, and it's just to say that it's so paradigmatic that it's insidious.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What did you
I just said I'm taking him home with me.
say? Right? You wanna work it out?
And I would
think
also,
another piece for me that is always just mind-boggling is we talk about control and human beings. And I just believe from a logical standpoint, the fallacies there, it's just inherent in that assumption. And then what I see in, I say in independent schools in particular, is independent schools who have diversity initiatives, i.e. to increase the numbers, inviting in peoples that they have no cultural literacy or competency about and around, if you will, and trying to control them by making them fit the independent school world, but also simultaneously telling them, we want you here because of your rich diversity and because of your voice and whatever. And so a lot of times we find, I'm in a situation right now where I'm like, you guys are trying to create a summer program for students who are transitioning, but you have not asked a single new student, how could we have better supported you? What have we done? Yeah, but you've gone out and you've just you've thrown something together, and are you ever gonna ask them? Because I can tell you, here's the mistakes that you made. But they've already done it and it's almost in place, and